Hey everybody, it's Linda G, and I'm here with our man about town, Astrology Alert, Andre.
Hi, everyone.
So listen, I had a client write me about eclipses. She was especially drawn to the November 8th, and I told her I'd ask you, but you said there's one today too.
Yeah, so eclipses, the way they work is if you have a new moon, you get a solar eclipse because the moon gets in front of the sun. They're in the same sign, it gets in front of the sun, then you don't see the sun, so you get a solar eclipse. That's what's happening today in early Scorpio. Then the moon keeps moving, and when it gets to full, because it's going to be the sun in Scorpio, moon gets to Taurus, now the Earth gets in front of the moon, and you get a lunar eclipse, right?
Okay.
That's the one on the night or day. That's actually the day of the election.
Okay.
But eclipses, they're kind of a double-edged sword. So depending on where it falls in your chart, what degrees it triggers, because the whole idea is, like this one today is 3 degrees Scorpio. If you happen to have planets or an ascendant or something really important in early Aquarius, early Leo, and Taurus and Scorpio, that's a more risky eclipse because it'll trigger more energy. And it could mean some difficult thing that could happen to you. But the deep meaning of the eclipse is that there's more potential for change, for something that is decided, that you go from there and actually benefits you, right?
Okay.
That's the logic. So it just depends where it falls on your chart. And the same is true for November 8th. And if you think about it, I mean, if people are asking, well, okay, well, there's an eclipse the day of the election. So then they think, well, that's probably bad. Well, bad for who? Because somebody's going to be happy and somebody's going to be not so happy. That's the way these things always work. And so you can expect automatically, though, because it is an eclipse, the energy is more intense. Already being a full moon, it means we're voting. I mean, look at the environment we're in, where you've got hundreds of Republican Congress people or potential Congress people saying that they're not even going to accept the election results unless they win. So if you expect this thing to be smooth,
It's not going to be.
it probably won't be. I mean, the odds are that you're going to see, pretty intense energy, and some people will be really disappointed, and some people will be really happy because that's the whole point. An eclipse can be a really high point. It feels more energetic than a regular full moon or a regular new moon. It's almost like dynamite. So you want to have it there if you can manage it. Because like say for example, that it was not so good for a person because they had a certain thing in the chart, then the counsel is still, okay, you got to figure this out and you got to get the best of what happened from there, learn from it and move forward. And it can still provide tremendous impetus, but it is more difficult, I'll admit it, because then it's the logic that you get an eclipse and you get an event that you're not particularly pleased by, right? Whereas if the eclipse is favorable to you, it feels really good and it feels like it's giving you a surge of energy. So it doesn't change the overall interpretation, but you get some kind of clues. Like, for instance, the eclipse across Taurus Scorpio does cut across Biden's planets, right? And you might say, well, okay, it's cutting across there. That might be bad. Well, maybe it's possible, but he is born himself on a full moon situation, number one. Number two, there is really good Jupiter in November. So then you say, no, that eclipse, probably he's not going to enjoy election night, probably because there are going to be a lot of arguments, probably, or, a lot of stuff in the air.
Yeah.
But I don't consider that a big problem. Whereas I can think of one person that I'm almost sure isn't going to like this, and that's Kevin McCarthy, because that's where his sun is. You see, so that's an example where I would consider that eclipse threatening, because cutting across your sun like that, not helpful. It wouldn't be my first choice at all. If you told me I'm trying to get a win and I see the eclipse cutting, I would feel.
I see them fighting desperately, but it just like with Trump, it just gets thrown to the wayside.
Yeah, well, the thing is, I think what people often forget, because they'll be looking at elections and they'll say, look at all these cheaters. Yeah, but in the end, it gets decided by lawyers and judges, because you can scream all you like. It gets filed in court. And if you have a thing to say, you better present evidence. And the thing about this whole Trump thing is, it's like we're living in this world where people say, well, I just know they cheated. You got evidence? No. Well, what do we do with this? Right?
Right. It's like the Dominion. I watched that 60-minute episode that Dominion is suing, and they absolutely made this whole thing up.
Yeah.
Argentinians and the Dominion, and they kept telling them, cease and desist. This is not true. And they didn't listen to them. They kept saying wrong things.
Yeah. I mean, you probably, can figure out by now that in America, the only way you stop someone from doing something awful is you hit them in the pocketbook. That's what happened to this Alex Jones character. It's like you could see the train wreck when his chart got really dicey. Now he's facing probably the rest of his life. He's going to get chased for, garnishing wages, whatever. They're always going to be on top of him.
They're going to get him. I know he tries to act like it's no big deal. They always do.
Yeah, well, they always do. Yeah, exactly.
Like Trump telling the guy, his sidekick, what was his name? It's not Kevin McCarthy. It's something.
Oh, Bannon?
Not Bannon. It's somebody else that worked with him. Mark Meadows.
Mark Meadows, yeah.
And he said, Mark, don't tell anybody I lost. This is just too embarrassing.
I know. It's like, everything that he did. Because I have to admit, I had a pretty good idea of what happened based on what I considered to be good reporting. But I was still pretty surprised by some of the things the committee unearthed to kind of let us know, for instance, that he absolutely knew. Because if he's making statements like that, he's just making it up because he doesn't like the result.
He doesn't like the result.
That's the logic.
But that's the way he is. He's always been that way.
Oh, totally.
Just like telling Bob Woodward, I got these, the North Korea guy. What's his name?
Oh, Kim Jong-un.
I got his love letters. He showed him some of his love letters. And then Bob Woodward said, well, how about you? Did you write some letters to Kim Jong-un? Yeah, but I can't show you those because those are top secret.
It's just, it's actually stunningly hilarious. I was watching Stephen Colbert last night, and he showed that clip, and then he just looked in the camera, with his face, and he said, did Trump have sex with Kim Jong-un? And he went on.
Yeah.
What the hell? I just can't believe this guy. The man is he's priceless in a certain way, in a really evil, demented, deranged way. The stuff he comes up with is pure comedy, because you think about things and you think
he's got groups of people that believe him.
But what kind of macho man talks like that? That's come on, please,
Well, he's not. He's never has been. He's a low life.
Yeah, sure, yeah. So, by the way, in his chart, it cuts across his midheaven and like the bottom part of the chart, which again, in the context of the overall hurricane he's facing as we move toward the end of the year, almost certainly a bad eclipse for him, the lunar eclipse. So,
and don't forget, you guys, this is for entertainment purposes only.
Yes, only entertainment.
It's our interpretation.
Exactly.
But what I find really interesting, my son and I had lunch at this place we love, but it's quite the drive. And I had my Ulysses S. Grant biography on. And as I'm listening to it, I'm thinking, oh my God, it's almost taking 1845 and sticking it in 2000, in the year 2000. Because these people, like Texas was the first that wanted to secede from the United States. Mm-hmm. They totally were for slavery, and people were hating on others.
Oh, it was
How dare you tell us what to do?
Yeah, that was a really tough time. And, with Ulysses S. Grant, one thing that when I did my research, which was really interesting, is Ulysses S. Grant was a progressive president.
Yes.
They were bringing back common sense following the Civil War and so forth. And that corresponds with multiple cycles that you see where Saturn is in Aquarius and in Pisces, which is where it is now, which I remember making videos pointing out that every single time since the 1860s, when Saturn goes through Aquarius and Pisces, you get progressive administrations, which I think is a really good marker for right now, because we're really being threatened by the potential for this thing to turn into, a fascist or at least it's like chaotic, crazy regime.
Well, they say, if they win, that's the end of we'll probably never get to vote again.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I would go that far, but it might happen. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the potential. Yeah,
But I just find it fascinating how Ulysses S. Grant was, in fact, he even said when the Mexican American War, he was a military man. He had to serve 8 years. And he was a man of his word. If he signed up for 8 years, he's doing 8 years. His future father in law begged him to quit and take some other job to marry the daughter because he didn't want him being in the army because his father in law was a slaveholder. Anyway, long story short, he couldn't leave, but he mentioned in this book that I'm listening to that it was very sad what the United States did to Mexico because it was about a river. It was about a certain river. And apparently the United States went over on property that did not belong to us and started the war. So, just like with the Native Americans, it wasn't for us. The Americans lied about giving the natives this and that. And they never did.
I know this is the kind of thing that people like DeSantis and others are trying to do. That they don't want that included in textbooks because you're not supposed to put anything that might cause the people to think, oh, well, maybe the U.S. made some mistakes. I mean, who doesn't make mistakes? Everyone makes mistakes.
And even the UK, Rome, they took over many nations. People fight amongst each other. Nobody really owns anything. That's the bottom line.
Exactly.
That's what the natives taught. This land is to use, it's not to own. You own nothing.
Right. Yeah.
So, but what's interesting is that the natives were so hated because they just tried to fight for their land, for a piece of property, just to stay there, just to have their families, just to take care of their families. And they just wouldn't allow it, and I'm half white. My father was white, so.
Yeah, well, that definitely. I mean, this is the thing that a lot of Republicans, especially, get mad if you bring up any kind of Native American, African American reparation issues. But the truth is the truth. If you don't grapple with the truth, they're always complaining. Oh, well, Russia is disinformation. Well, you're kind of engaging in that too. If you're
and also Germany. There's some Nazis that don't believe that about the killing of the Jews.
The Holocaust. Yeah, no, absolutely.
Never
absolutely.
happened.
Yeah, there's no question. I mean,
all those dead bodies are mannequins.
I mean, isn't it incredible, though, the way history unfolds? Because Ulysses S. Grant was in Lincoln's party. That was the Republican Party. So the Republican Party, for quite a while, they were the defenders of democracy, and they were the defenders of progressive thinking. And then it flipped. And then the Democratic Party, which used to be the totally
That's why
racist
when
party.
I'm listening to this audio, it's confusing because I'm hearing the Democratic Party, but it's not the Democratic Party that I know. It's another Democratic.
No, the Democratic Party used to be they were the party of the South. So they were actually the party that wanted to keep slavery and at that time was involved heavily in protecting their interests that way. But then as time passed, it flipped. And I actually don't know 100% of that worked because the Republican Party also became the business party by the time we got into the 20th century. But there had to be something that brought that on, and I'm not sure what it is. I have to research a little more. But definitely they flipped because now it's pretty clear who's who, and especially since Lyndon Johnson, because Lyndon Johnson, when he brought in civil rights, he actually said, we're going to lose the South for a generation. They'll never vote for us again because they didn't want to give African Americans, the rights
freedom to vote. Yeah,
that are their own. Those
but
are the rights
the white population is decreasing. Pretty soon they'll have no choice because there's not enough of them. That's what they're saying about all these thousands of people voting. All these people. On the news this morning, they said it's beyond anything that they've ever seen. People voting early.
Yeah, and I'm sure, and that's usually a threat, by the way, to the Republicans.
Yeah, but they're acting like, oh yeah, our people are coming out and voting. Hello, there's more Democrats than there are Republicans.
Yeah, that's totally true. No, the turnout with Democrats, this has been the case for the last, I'm not kidding you, 25 years. If Democrats seriously vote, they can win every election. That's what, in a way, can really frustrate, because the whole Hillary Clinton debacle, first and foremost, was lack of voting. Because, I mean, think about it. 2009, 2008, Obama gets almost 70 million votes, and Hillary only got, I think it was 63 or 64. What happened to those other 6 million? I mean,
They stayed home because everybody said she was going to win.
yeah, but that's what you can't do. That's the whole idea, because also in politics, what's really important is to win big, because if you win big, then you
Nobody
get a
can
mandate.
say you cheated. Yeah.
No, well, yeah, well, plus you have a mandate. You can say that people are saying this, but if people go, whatever, I'll let someone else do it, then you win tight, and then the other party thinks, well, I mean, we got close, so we should be able
But
to.
we weren't even close with Trump. Electoral votes were way bigger than his, and the numbers, 83 million more voted for him, and Trump still acted like it was a fraud.
Well, Trump that way. I mean, it's just amazing to me though that he can. I mean, you gotta give the guy this much. He's a really good cult leader, because it's like he's tapped into something where he can say unbelievable stuff that makes no sense, has no reality, and yet I keep seeing these things, like they get these focus groups of Trump voters, and they say, "Oh yeah, no, there was definite cheating in the election."
Yeah.
They don't care that there was no evidence. They don't care that, none of it matters to them. Did you see the Jon Stewart interview with the guy from Arizona? And Stewart is saying to him, "You did all your studies and you found there was no fraud. Why don't you state that? Say that Trump isn't telling the truth." Guy's not willing to do that, because if he says that, his career is over, because all the voters that they've, hypnotized will vote against him. So they're between a rock and a hard place. No.
That's terrible.
I know.
And
it's
that
totally
guy
terrible.
from the Dominion on the 60 Minutes program, you should have heard the voicemails that people left, how they want to kill them. I mean, it's never just, I don't agree with you. It's, I want to cut you up and your family too.
Yeah, but it's just the thing though, that people like the Kraken lady, Giuliani, Fox News, OAN. The only way it's gonna be stopped is if it hurts their pocketbook. And basically, Dominion is just saying this: what you just did there, where you made up stuff, is costing us billions, because it is.
Oh, yeah.
Now their machines, they can't sell them. They could project and say this is what it would have cost, right? So
Yeah, they're gonna, let me tell you, they try to stop them on every end, Fox News, everybody, and they can't. And Dominion's gonna win.
well, if Dominion
Gonna win
wins,
this lawsuit and hit Fox up real.
then that's the one corrective, because there's no other way. I mean, these guys, they just keep making it up.
Yeah.
And I think, by the way, it's a sign of desperation, because normally when you can play, you can play tough, but if you think you've got good odds, but I think they know that the vote is kind of running away from them,
Yeah.
There are too many. So
And also, let me ask you something. Let's just pretend that the midterms come and it's not really close, and we get 62 in Senate, and we get as many, maybe a few more in Congress. Now what?
now what? No, that would be a catastrophic outcome for the Republican Party and for Trump, because part of Trump's problem is he is the direct reason why people like Herschel Walker,
Ran.
why is he running? Because Trump put him there. Why is the guy there's a guy in Ohio, Vance, that's a Trump person. So if those people don't win, then the analysis is going to be, hey, it was Trump. And then Trump can say all he likes, but he will have said
That's years ago when I read on this, years ago, I saw the Republicans jumping off the Trump ship like rats. And I definitely have the strong feeling, and I've said it before and I'll say it again, that with the loss, pray, pray, pray. But if we win, then everybody this time aren't going to give Trump, because we lost. They lost in 2018 big, even though he went city to city and said you have to vote for a Republican or they're going to impeach me. And what happened? He lost bigly. So now if he loses again, I think this is where heads start turning and saying,
Yeah, and by the way, it's suspicious that you see the Trump, the chart, the wave is moving toward the Saturn cycle for 3 solid years, just leaning into them. The thing that I think I said in a prior thing, I brought up how you see this with criminals. That's when the police or the authorities catch up to them, right? And it isn't like he hasn't committed crimes, because he has.
He has.
In fact, he's committed big crimes after he lost his presidency. I mean, the man is precious. The way he operates, he can't stop criming. Any opportunity, he's in there. And I think he handed it to the Justice Department, because when you actually leave papers, actual tangible proof, you're screwed. It's a problem, because they're going to present it and, what is
Now,
it?
did you take a look see at Marjorie Taylor Greene, who, by the way, has announced to everybody that Kevin McCarthy is going to put her in charge of all the committees, and that Trump is going to have her run as VP?
Well, the thing with Marjorie Taylor Greene is that there are two things happening here, which I think it's pretty certain. Number one thing would be that she's likely to win, because her district is very red. But the problem is her chart, she's under a lot of Pluto energy. And Pluto energy is what she's doing. Pluto is the fascistic, domination, authoritative type of energy, which Trump is constantly trying to express. And then Marjorie's kind of a Trumpy, figure that way. The problem is, because it's under harsh Pluto energy, she may not get the results she wants. Now, that doesn't mean she's going to stop raising money and so forth, but I wouldn't use her chart as any kind of indicator that things are going to go the way she expects.
That should be the future VP. She's got this. She told McCarthy he has to make her in charge of all committees.
Yeah, well.
Or I'll pull my thing. They really think they're like movie stars that faded out. They think they're all that. They actually think that they're important. They don't get the big picture.
Well, it's pretty remarkable that we live in an era where people can completely backtrack on something, where they're on camera telling you something, and then they just do the opposite. People like McCarthy, Lindsey Graham. I mean, McCarthy was, saying Trump caused the insurrection. It's all Trump's fault. He bears responsibility. And within a week, he figured out, if I don't go over and kiss his ring at Mar-a-Lago.
Even Mitch McConnell went quiet.
He went quiet, although Mitch McConnell's method, apparently he's mad at Liz Cheney, because he said she should just stop talking about Trump, but she shouldn't have turned against him the way he did. Just ignore him. The problem is, you can't ignore the guy, because he's out there constantly
trying
doing
to take
things.
away our Constitution.
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine a second Trump presidency? That would be like Russia, because he would put in a bunch of lackeys and attempt to change all the rules. I mean, he has no respect for anything, No. So, no.
Now, did you get a little something on that Clarence Thomas giving the I don't think that's going to last with Lindsey Graham, giving him a stay. I see Lindsey Graham having to testify.
No, Clarence Thomas, I mean, I'm amazed. This is another guy I'm really amazed at, how he's constantly confirming for Democrats, especially for the whole country too, how corrupt he is, because he should stay out of this, because he's not going to get the votes from the Supreme Court. The problem with that is, if they start allowing what Graham wants to do, you basically rip up the law. You destroy the whole fabric of the way things work. So it's very unlikely that they're going to do that. So all he's doing is delaying. Whatever, delay all you like. Graham, like you said, I'm with you. He's going to have to testify, and he's probably going to be at least burned some, not as burned as Trump, but he's going to get burned by what he did, I think.
Right.
Yeah, that's how I would call it.
So anything else on the signs coming up that you wanted to throw by us real quick?
Well, I think with probably the key, since we're on the eclipse and so forth, that's the main energy to focus on. That
Does eclipse cause earthquakes?
That I have no idea.
Okay.
To be honest, I mean, some people, like, there are astrologers that are good at doing weather patterns and things like earthquakes. I don't have a whole lot of experience with that. There might be, though, because the thing is, whenever you get eclipses or big movements of planets that cluster together and things like that, yes, they tend to correlate with big events. So it's possible.
Okay, because we had people are writing me, Linda, are you okay? There was an earthquake in California. There was a 2.6 and a 3.6. And so that's not really considered an earthquake.
No, I mean, an earthquake, usually the scary ones are 6, 7, 8, right?
Yes. Well, I had that 4-pointer that shook this house pretty good, but it was only 8 miles down and we were right on the epicenter. And
Yeah,
my
that's what
house
it'll do it.
shook hard. But
Yeah.
yeah.
There's a big, we had one here in 2001 that was pretty high, like at 8 or more, but it was deep enough that it still scared everyone a lot because everything shook really hard.
Were you
But
rolling or you shook?
no, rolling. Like I remember being I was in this on the island here near Seattle, and I thought I was on a boat. It was moving, and the cars in the parking lot were swaying. It was pretty scary. But then they said the only reason you didn't get really major damage is it was deep enough in the earth that that's what did it. If it had been another
Ah,
few miles up above, it would have been
it would have been
catastrophic. So it
devastating.
always depends, right?
Well, this city that I'm in Northern California, in the 1906 earthquake, was totally flattened.
Yeah, no,
And
and
it's far away, but it was a low Prieta, so it, or was it the Hayward fault? But anyway, it hit San Francisco. Yes, San Francisco's turmoil was mostly to do with fire. But Petaluma, Santa Rosa, those places with the old Western homes, boom, they
yeah,
collapsed.
and you're on that. This is the thing with the West Coast that we're on those fault lines. Like where I live here, it
I
wouldn't be
know.
that. It's a pretty scary place to live because they tell you there's this fault, that it's like at some point no one
Yeah,
knows, but
yeah,
like it could be 1,000 years because
exactly.
in earthquake years, there's no way to predict it easily. But it's like living on the edge of a cliff, and wondering if you're going to be drinking the ocean water.
I know that. Well, I haven't seen that Armageddon, not psychically. Maybe I'm not due to see it. Where the ocean, where or, not that it couldn't happen, but where half of California falls into the ocean.
Yeah, I mean, it's this is one area where it's really, really hard for scientists. They do much better predicting weather. When it gets to predicting earthquakes,
Well, let me
it's
tell you something. One time I was I where I worked, we didn't have an OR theater up on the ninth floor. We had to go down to the first floor to the operating room for all our crash sections. So we had a lot of, Joint Commission came in and said, "Oh, hell no, you need an operating upstairs." But we had the nurses from the 1940s, 50s that didn't want to change anything, didn't want to have to deal with it. So I said, I volunteered that I'd be happy to indulge and be one of the new ones for surgery. And so they put me into a college in San Mateo, which was across a long bridge. So I'm at the college, and all of us girls, there was about 8 of us, we went for lunch. And I had brought my cards, back in those days, we just did it for fun. I can't tell you I was as serious as I am now. So I threw the cards. Each one of the girls had the tower, each one of them.
wow.
And I sat down and I said, you know what? I wouldn't doubt if we're getting ready to have some sort of natural disaster or an earthquake or something, because there's a tower on each one of them. And then within, I think that weekend, right after that weekend, we had the big World Series. That was that. And then the bridge, not that bridge, but another bridge collapsed and we were shut down. We couldn't go back to school for a week. But that's what it was. Each one of them. But what do? Go around reading everybody and seeing how many people end up with a tower?
No, I know. I mean,
But that was it. I'm telling you, it was telling us we're about ready to get interrupted. Something unexpected is getting ready to occur.
yeah, yeah. The tower is the perfect card for an earthquake.
Yeah, yeah. Boom,
The
boom.
perfect card. Yeah, I remember that was the earthquake where I'm pretty sure my memory is the TV was on and the baseball game was on,
Yes.
and all of a sudden it kind of went like there was snow and then it kind of broke up and I thought, oh, okay, the TV they lost track,
Yeah.
and only later I realized, oh, that was when the earthquake happened. That's why they lost.
Yeah, because we
lost the
lost
TV.
everything. It was dead quiet except the cars going beep, beep, beep.
Yeah,
And we went out in the front. And my dad was in a wheelchair and he had a little transistor radio. And it was the Bay Bridge has collapsed. Holy cow, that particular 580 freeway collapsed on itself. It was like it was a Armageddon. It was like a bad dream. And then they said, all nurses, all doctors, please report to where you, but see, I worked at a hospital that was on the freeway over some overpasses. I didn't know if the overpasses were still standing. I went, but I was scared, but I got there. And when I got there, the weirdest thing, Andre, in the front of the hospital were black suits. Black suits. Nobody with a badge or a gun. I'm talking black suits. And we had to show them our ID and our badge for the hospital. But that was weird. Yeah, I don't know what that was about. And let me tell you, so many women went into labor. And the hospital I was in, that they've actually closed, but it was one of the newer ones, was on a rolling thing. So if there was an earthquake, it was only supposed to do that. And it broke all kinds of edges of the ceiling, and there was a lot of damage.
That's your, your chart, because you're a Virgo in the 12th sign, and that's the 12th sign is the place of nurses.
Disaster?
No, nurses.
Oh,
That's your. Well, I mean, disaster too, maybe, but no. Okay, so that's your your previous incarnation, or your it's one of the places you've been, kind of thing, because it's the
right,
12th,
right.
yeah.
And ex-husbands, a lot of ex-husbands in the 12th.
Let me see. Hold on a second. Not exactly in your chart, but it is a place. Yeah, it's a place where things can go wrong. Let's just say that. Yeah, but
Yeah.
It's not, in your chart, it's a little indirect around the husband thing. In terms of thinking of the ones that didn't work out.
Yeah, but I was always kind of supposed to be on my own, I think, because I'm doing so much better, energetically, spiritually, and these terrible things that have taken place in my life, I am grateful for them because they made me who I am today. I wouldn't trade that for nothing.
True. And you can add to that, though, that all of that said, you do have really good energy in your relationship house from the end of the year, around Christmas, all the way into about June. So there's that too, to think about.
Okay. Well, I got my doctor, I did my pre-ops, and I don't know when I'm going to have my surgery, but I told you about that surgery. But I'll let you know when I have it. You could take a quick look, see, make sure I live through it. I got to they won't let me die because they need me to finish that book. I'll be honest with you. I know this sounds crazy, but this book has to be done, which I got most of it done, but I'm going to really sit down and finish beginning of January when I'm done with the readings. And then I've almost got this weird feeling like once it's done and it's published and it's gone, then I die.
Well, come on. Really?
It's a weird feeling. People have told me, no, I think you're going to write more than one book. But I almost have this dread, like when I finish the book, then right after I'm going to die. Because I already have 2 stents in my heart. I could drop dead tomorrow of a massive heart attack.
Well, then I think you should delay writing the book because we want to have you around. What do you?
Sometimes I wonder, is that why I'm kind of like,
Maybe
hiding it a little bit. But they've been very clear. I need to finish this book.
Well, there are other ways to get your message out. Like if, delay, please.
Okay. No, I feel like they'll take care of me. A lot of psychics, very good psychics, told me that I was going to be writing a second book. In fact, do you know Lisa Williams?
I don't. No.
She's a psychic that had her own TV show. And years ago, before any of this started, she told me, besides Patricia McLean, my psychic reader, that told me that I was going to be pushed into the forefront in my 60s. And I thought she was cray-cray. And then this Lisa Williams said, you're going to write a book. And I want you to know you have to do this book. It's very important. And right after that, there's another book. So she did tell me there was going to be 2.
And this is where I get to show off my astrological powers, because I have your chart in my mind. And as you were saying that, your chart, you've got Jupiter, which is the most powerful planet around success and expansion and growth and so forth. That is connected to your writing house, and it's in the publishing house. So it's choice, the way it's set up.
Love it.
And another thing about it is that it reaches that degree because it has a 12-year cycle, right? So it's going to
Yeah.
go back to where it was in 2024, suggesting that you're moving into that period, where matters of that particular, publishing, getting information out there is flourishing, right? So, yeah. So it matches
When
really
did
well.
Jupiter, the 12 year, when did it come in? Do you remember? How many years do I got?
Come in where?
Does Jupiter enter into my sign, or is it just
No.
where the placement
Okay.
is?
So Jupiter right now it's in a place in your chart where it really benefits relationships either one-on-one or with people in general. You're making a lot of great contacts between May of 22 and the summer of 23, and that continues for a couple more years. But what's happening though is that the work you're doing around publishing anything is going toward a peak in 2024. But you could be publishing this book by next year, and then in 24 it's like a second book or whatever it is. But it's growing in that direction.
Growing, okay.
Yeah. So it's
Because
really
there's always a reason, I blame myself, but they know what they're doing. They know when it's time. They told me I could go ahead and stop reading because I thought I had to do this, to help others help themselves. And it's been a wonderful run, but it's time for me to stop.
yeah. No, I mean it is. The reading can be taxing. So
Oh, I know. Even with your readings, I'm sure.
yeah, I noticed that I noticed that I have to be very careful with how much I do because I notice if I do two in a day, the third one is too much. It's
Oh my God, can you believe for a while there when I started, I was actually doing all day Saturdays from 8 in the morning till 3 in the afternoon, and then plus Monday through Friday, and I don't know what the hell I was thinking.
yeah, it's intense because it's hard to describe. Part of it is talking, listening. When I'm doing a reading consultation, it's like 1 hour of concentration on what I'm doing because I'm hearing the person, I'm tuning into the chart, I'm following my intuition. It's very intense. It's like being on a
Right,
high wire.
right.
So you can only do so much of that. It's a little bit like you can be great at running or exercising, but if you do too much, you burn out. You've got
You
to
burn out.
have the right
Like
amount,
me,
right?
I can't seem to get off that running and walking all distances. The doctor said to me, I told you about having a physical with my doctor, right?
Yeah, you did.
You were cracking up. Of course, I made all that up, but I told you, people were dying. They were calling me saying, "Oh my God, Linda," when I said that I was sitting there naked. And my doctor said, "Linda, are you naked?" Well, duh, this is my physical.
I know, but wasn't it last time that you were saying about what it would be like if it was on Zoom, right? To save time, but you have to do that.
So the doctor said to me, so what kind of exercise are you getting in? And which is always, for a while there, I was walking 2.5 miles before COVID. I took those dogs around that lake every day. We loved it. And then when you lose they even closed down the lake for COVID. And now I got to build it back up. I
Yeah,
said, well, let's see. From here to the refrigerator, maybe 3-4 feet back. Oh, but getting up and down from this chair, that's, that helps my thighs.
okay, I'll tell you one thing though. That same cycle turns out that the cycle that starts in the new year, although I guess you can use this as an excuse not to do anything until the new year, but the cycle in the new year, it benefits increased physical activity especially during those first 6 months. And a lot of what goes on with this kind of thing is as soon as you get on a roll, it'll tend to stick.
That's me. All
Yeah.
I got to do is start it. Once I started, I remember when I was in nursing school, I used to run 4 miles a day and I didn't miss a day. I refused.
Yeah. Yeah.
My dad was like that. He was a triathlon racer before he broke his back, and then he was a racer in the wheelchair. He was sponsored to the Boston Marathon by the vets.
Yeah.
But, we love to exercise, but I just got off the track.
Yeah, because curiously, you have the I don't know if I call it genetics. You can call it master genetics. You've got this thing in your chart, a Mars-Pluto connection, which is really lots and lots of energy, and that it makes sense that your father would have been
He was really
marathoning or doing triathlete. That's like almost too much energy, but it's the mark of you put Mars and Pluto together, there's extreme energy, right?
Well,
So
he broke his back. He was a professional motorcycle racer as well as being a fire captain. And he did races, and then one of his motorcycles, he didn't, because he's tight with his money, he didn't replace a part that hit wide open, and he hit something, and he thought that bike was hitting his back. It was his legs. He broke his back in half.
ouch, ouch. Yeah,
Never
I'm
to
sorry.
walk again. But then he ended up pushing, he pushed every day.
Yeah, no, if the energy's there, in a way, it doesn't matter.
And he had a bad heart, a real bad heart. And the guy died at 80, and he didn't die of heart disease.
Interesting.
And I have a bad heart too. I have 2 stents in my heart. But you know what? I get out there, and because I can be very strong. That's one thing about me. I could pick up grown men and throw them when I was young. I'm not bragging or anything, but nobody really messed with me when I was young because I was so strong.
That's a
I
great
could pick
skill.
up furniture. I could do whatever was needed.
Yeah, that's a great skill. It's a
Yeah,
great skill.
but
That's
I was built like a mule.
I mean, to me, it's better, having, anytime you have strong physical energy, it's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. I mean, you can misuse it, but having it is a great gift, because it just benefits so many things. It makes life easier.
Well, having your health, I think that's so true. I remember when I was young, but my mom was always very crippled with rheumatoid arthritis, and she always said, be happy that you have your health. That's more important than money or anything.
It's true. It's
Having health, good health.
100% true. No doubt about that. I agree.
Okay, my friend. Well, I'm going to post this. I'm going
All
to
right.
feed my dogs.
So,
They eat right at 4 o'clock. They don't like to be late. They like to eat right at 4 o'clock, and I'm
Yeah.
already late.
they live for food. So
They're sitting here staring at me.
I look forward to our next talk, because I have a feeling by next week there's going to be more to talk about, because this
We're
thing is
going to
gonna
have
be
some
intense.
stuff to
No,
talk about.
I'll leave everyone with this thought though. Just realize that the election cycle is really intense. So just relax into it, but be prepared to see quite a bit that
Cray.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't going to be easy.
There might even be some violence, but I'm not seeing mass.
No.
A lot of these people, the ones that call and say those terrible things, they're just bullies.
Oh,
They're
yeah.
bullies. I'm telling you, Trump, when they went in and did Mar-a-Lago and got those things, they didn't raid him. They called ahead of time and said they were coming. They was as polite as anybody could be. He hoped that the nation would gather up and march in the streets and, how dare you, like be out, Black Lives Matter, that kind of energy. They should have been on the streets, and they never did. What was it? Maybe 12 people at Mar-a-Lago, and Mar-a-Lago wouldn't let them use the bathroom.
Yeah, and
Did you believe that? They wouldn't let them use the bathroom. So if I was them, I'd have just crapped right on the street.
totally. And the one thing we heard about is one guy who decided, because of the Trump thing, that he was going to take on the whole FBI, and he got himself killed.
It's sad.
It's the way these people think. I mean,
I know.
it's so moronic.
This too will change. I'm not feeling desperate. I'm not feeling despondent, but it does take a while. It's just going to be like the Civil War. And Ulysses S. Grant, by the way, he didn't know where the S came from. He really didn't. His father signed him up, and he didn't know what the S was for.
Okay, that I didn't know. That I did not know.
So anyway, Ulysses S. Grant did everything he could as president of the United States, and pretty near succeeded in cutting out the KKK. He had hundreds of them arrested. He did everything, but they still snuck back.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Although you have to thank people like that, because the nobility of protecting all human beings, even though you could just say, well, I'm with you guys, because we're the same skin color, right? But
Right.
that's actually what's needed is for people to be human, instead of saying, well, I'm black or I'm white, or, that's not the way it should be. That's wrong.
No, well, there's a little clip that I should repost on Twitter of 2 bags of blood. And it says, which one is the black guy?
Yeah, that's
Well,
about
you
it.
don't know. Blood's
Yeah.
the same.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
anyway, what's happening is we're commingling. Our youth is getting together with different nations. And, look at me. I'm a Heinz 57. I got Mexican, Indian, and Irish, German. So, all right, my friend. Okay,
All right.
so I'm going to be on your show next.
All right. Look forward to seeing you there.
And let's do this next week, okay?
All
I'm
right.
kind of nervous, but in a way, I'm excited.
I know. It's a big event.
Okay. All
Bye,
right.
everybody.
Bye. Bye.